All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Emily Steinberg with America's Service Commissions. Welcome to our October 2019 Executive Director Learning Community Call. Very excited about our agenda today. We have a great guest presenter for you who you will hear about shortly. Just a few quick announcements before I turn it over to Kyra. I am recording today's call, and we will make sure to post this recording as well as the slides and materials from the call in our Basecamp group afterwards. Also, I do have everybody in listen-only muted mode. However, if you would like to ask a question, please let us know either in the chat box or you can raise your hand and we'll call on you when we have an opportunity to do so. So excited to have everyone here today. I will go ahead and turn it over to our CEO, Kyra Escape. Kyra?
Great. Thanks, Emily, and thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's Executive Director Learning Community Call. We're going to kick off the call with just doing a few Ask News and Reminders, and then we will spend the bulk of our call on our topic for this month, which is Intergenerational Service. And I am delighted that we have several guest speakers with us today. The first is Phyllis Segal, who is the Vice President of Encore.org. And Phyllis comes to us with an esteemed career and a long history with national service. Prior to, and actually during the time that she's been VP at Encore.org, she also served as a board member for the Corporation for National Community Service. She also has had a long legal career as well. And we're excited to have Phyllis join us today because she joined us for our Volunteer Generation Fund community convening earlier this year in June. And the topic was of a lot of interest to our Volunteer Generation Fund grantees, and we thought that this would be of interest to the larger state commission network as well. So delighted to have Phyllis join us. In addition, we will have Carie from Serve Kentucky. I'll talk a little bit about intergenerational programming that's occurring in Kentucky. And then Carson from South Carolina will also share some perspective on what they're doing in South Carolina. But before we do all of that, I want to go ahead and talk through a few reminders from ASK. So on the screen, you'll see a few things that we wanted to share with you or remind you of as we finish out the month of October. So the first is for executive directors, a reminder that our next call with the corporation leadership regarding the Transformation and Sustainability Plan is tomorrow, Wednesday, October 23rd at 4 p.m. Eastern. There will be a number of updates regarding the rollout of the regional office structure, and we anticipate some other updates as well. So you receive registration information for that call via the executive director update for the months of September, October that was sent out about a week and a half ago. We'll also send a reminder with that link later on today, but do hope that you can join us for that call. Secondly, wanted to remind you, and that's not FY29, we're not quite that far in advance, so I apologize for the typo, but FY20 opt-in services survey. So if your commission has not completed that opt-in services survey, if you could please do so by this Friday, we would greatly appreciate it. Again, this will give us the information that we need in order to determine which opt-in services we will be able to move forward with in 2020, and also then will allow us to put together the request for proposals for consultants and other support for those services. So do appreciate if you could complete those surveys by the end of day on Friday. Next, as many of you probably saw, we did release our 2020 Regional Conferences call for proposals yesterday. That came out through an email blast from ASK. So we do hope that you all will consider potentially submitting proposals, but also sharing that request for proposals with consultants, programs, others that you work with that you think might be interested in submitting a proposal for one of the regional conferences. Those proposals are due Friday, December 6th, so folks have about 6 weeks in order to submit those proposals. Also, as part of that communication, we announced the dates and locations for our 2020 regional conferences. We're really excited about our lineup for 2020. So you'll see there, Pacific and Southwest will be March 30th through April 1st in Albuquerque, New Mexico. May 6th through 8th will be the Central Region in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And then June 2nd through 4th will be our Atlantic and Southern regions, and that will be in Burlington, Vermont. So more information about registration, et cetera. But we wanted you, again, to have those dates for your calendar. And then finally, NEDs, you received a communication about this from Rachel last week, but we do have the date set for the 2020 Ask Hill Day and leadership convening. So those activities are going to happen the week of February 10th, 2020. There will be an Ask Board meeting on Monday, as well as a Hill Day kickoff that evening. Tuesday, the 11th, will be the Ask Hill Day, as well as the Voices for National Service Awards reception. And then the actual leadership convening for Commission Executive Directors, as well as Commission Chairs, will be Wednesday and Thursday of that week. So more information to come, including registration and agenda, but wanted to make sure that you had those dates locked off on your calendar. So with that, I believe those are all of our announcements and reminders. So we are going to go ahead and turn it over to Phyllis, again, Vice President of Encore.org, to lead us our conversation today regarding intergenerational service. With that, I'll turn it over to Phyllis.
One moment, let me just make sure that Phyllis is unmuted. Okay, Phyllis, I believe if you unmute your own line, you should now be able to speak.
Ah, you gave me control. Thank you. It's so nice to have some control over life. Hi, everybody. It's delightful to be with you on this call as a follow-up to the really interesting conversation I had with colleagues of many of you in St. Paul, I believe it was, in June. And to be able to talk with you today about the idea of intergenerational service as a huge opportunity for all of your states, for all of our communities. ASC is operating the slides, so there's going to be a bunch of my mentioning. Next slide, please, and I hope that won't interrupt the flow. What you see here is an agenda, a brief agenda for my time with you. I'm going to start by very briefly introducing Encore.org and Gen to Gen, then to speak with you about intergenerational service, to raise two ideas that I hope will interest you in your state, and then to talk about what's next. While I will be presenting and you'll be seeing slides, I hope this can be a conversation and that you'll ask questions through the chat box. Maybe you'll be given control to actually speak up, and so we can hear your voice. So that you're participating and not just listening. To start with the next slide, giving you an introduction to Encore.org. We were created 20 years ago by our founder, Mark Friedman, and his mentor and co-founder, John Gardner, out of the understanding that an aging population presented a huge opportunity for our nation. We call ourselves an innovation hub and catalyst because what we are doing is trying to find new ways to leverage an aging population and to catalyze others to do the same. Our goal is to realize the potential of longer lives and intergenerational connection as a source for solving our most pressing social problems. On the next slide, I'm showing you two examples of our work connecting the generations. One is the most recent book by Mark Friedman, our founder, How to Live Forever. That cute title is to attract attention. The real content of this is that we live together through the enduring power of connecting the generations rather than literally extending our lives. Generation to Generation is an initiative we began a couple of years ago to mobilize 1 million adults over 50 to make a difference in the lives of kids, to help young people thrive. You can learn more about Mark's book about Generation to Generation and all of the work we do on the website Encore.org. The opportunity we see in an aging population, and you'll see a visual to just indicate the growth of older adults, the number of older adults in our population, is because of an unprecedented demographic wave with the aging of baby boomers and Gen X. There are more older people alive today than ever before. This is the first year, for the first time ever, that there are more people over the age of 60 than under the age of 18, maybe 15 as well. And in the next 10 years, it's estimated that 1 out of every 4 people in our country will be past the traditional retirement age of 65. We will also be past the idea of traditional retirement because most older adults, as I'm sure fits your own experience in your states, will either need to or want to keep working or serving at least part-time. And we know that the older population is especially motivated by the chance to make a difference in their communities. This is not something new. Older adults have always engaged in work and service that gives back, but what we are seeing in the huge demographic bulge and in the imperative of making the most of the decades after midlife is that many more than are already doing it want to engage in work and service that gives back. Our research has shown that there are about 32 million adults 50 and older who express an interest in contributing time and energy to helping children and youth, to making a difference for future generations. Intergenerational service is a description of many different kinds of activities. First and foremost, activating the older population to support other generations, if you will, Gen for Gen. And second is to enable the generations to serve together alongside each other in intergenerational service teams, Gen with Gen. Why is this important? What's the value add of, in fact, activating and enabling intergenerational service? The next slide lists a couple of the reasons. Oops, the next slide after this will list them. What you're seeing here is, again, the fact, no, I'm sorry, go back. I meant you to go back. Whoever's operating it, return, okay. Intergenerational service is not a new idea. We've had many milestones over the past decades, and this slide lists a number of them. In the 1960s, in fact, President Kennedy had a proposal for a National Service Corps, which was going to mobilize older adults to make a difference in the lives of their of young people and in their communities. That Service Corps was never created, but the Peace Corps was. And while most people in the Peace Corps are young, there's always been a contingent of older adults in the Peace Corps. In the 1960s, foster grandparents was created, as well as several other programs. In the 1970s, Senior Companions was created. I'm going to pause in the 1990s because that was when you were all created through the National Community Service Act. And AmeriCorps was established. You may be aware of the fact that the original language in the AmeriCorps legislation would have had AmeriCorps members be between the ages of 17 and 24. That was changed to 17 and older as an expression and a realization that people of all ages could serve and that AmeriCorps could be an intergenerational experience. Experience Corps is the largest AmeriCorps program that's mobilized older adults in serving young children. Experience Corps places teams of older adults in third grade to help young children with literacy. There are Experience Corps in many states, and some of them I know are on this call. In the 2000s, we all remember the Serve America Act, the unrealized promise and dream of a major expansion in AmeriCorps. Serve America Act also set a goal of 10% of AmeriCorps members to be older adults. It authorized Encore fellowships and was really a significant step forward in recognizing the value of intergenerational service. There's also been some milestones within state service commissions. In 2007, California Service Commission issued a report that is as relevant today as it was then about the promise of bringing older adults into the service movement to be a solution for our community's needs. Now let's go to the next slide, please, for a couple of reasons of why intergenerational service is such a value to our communities. First and perhaps foremost, it's an opportunity with an increase in the aging population to expand the service talent pool to address the pressing social problems in our communities. By providing purpose and connection for older adults, it's a way of it's a way of improving health, of addressing the problem of social isolation, which is in fact a problem at both ends of the age spectrum. Providing more caring adults in the lives of young people is a strategy to improve the prospects for young people and we believe that strong intergenerational bonds can help repair the social fabric, which, as we look all around us, the divisions and the polarization is in fact tearing us apart as a nation. Building bridges between the generations across the diversity on the age spectrum is a way to unite us to be creating a better future together. I am curious, and I'm going to turn now to you with the question on the next slide of what is happening in your states, what intergenerational service is taking place either in the generations for each other or the generations with each other mode. And I know that we're going to hear from two states who've been primed to let us know what's going on, and then hopefully more of you can chat in or raise your hand so we can hear from you as well.
Great. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and invite Carie from Kentucky to join or to provide us a little bit of an overview of what's happening in Kentucky. So Emily, if you could unmute Carie.
All right, Carie, you should be unmuted.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. So again, I'm Carie Kizziar with the Serve Kentucky Commission. I am the program officer. I manage our 22 AmeriCorps programs. Right now in Kentucky, we have 3 senior or elder related programs operating. One has been a long-time grantee called Senior Connections, and their focus is on companionship, socialization, by engaging seniors in social activities. So their sites are varied based on the needs of each community, but most members are serving in locations like senior living facilities or just recreational senior centers, various volunteer organizations. They have some long-term care ombudsmen that work with people in their homes to make sure that their Medicare and other things are taken care of. They work with food insecurity. For example, today, over 500 seniors will be receiving food bags from our AmeriCorps members and their volunteers. They call it the Feeding Seniors Now Day, and it's basically a day spent making sure that seniors in various communities have food, and that includes milk and eggs and things like that. So it's a very big project that they make part of their yearly activities for their members. They also have a senior day out at the mall. They provide additional social opportunities as well as services and referrals. In the past few years, they've had anywhere from 28 to 44 members serving in our Western Kentucky counties. We also have a Christian Appalachian Project, which has various activities that their programs engage in and their members do, but they have a specific focus as well on helping seniors. So they are recruiting members who are going into seniors' homes to work on repair as well as companionship and transportation. So they do housing repairs like roofing and flooring, weatherization, siding, installation, room additions, ramps, windows, doors, and about 21 members supervising over 1,000 volunteers help seniors in these areas of housing development. And they have a monthly food distribution for their seniors. And then they provide social contacts such as transportation to essential food and services, whether that's healthcare or social events. And they typically, those are probably their easiest positions to fill, and people seem to really enjoy that kind of service. And so it's going really well, and that covers our eastern part of the state. So they're primarily located in the Appalachian area. And then our last program is new this year and isn't quite running at 100% just yet, but they do, it's called Active Choices, and they will be located in this first year for their pilot, are going to be located in 5 organizations, what we call area ad districts, and they will be serving the elder population through an activity or a program called Active Choices. And it's a telephone-based physical activity program that is proven to increase physical activity in homebound seniors or individuals. And basically they have wellness coordinators who work with the seniors to develop realistic individualized exercise plans. And then those individuals kind of oversee members that are serving in a lower capacity, like 300 or 450 hour positions, that actually check in with the seniors on a regular basis to ensure that they're meeting their activity goals. But they're going to recruit with the plan of 30-minute visits, at least 10 sessions for each person or each senior. And then they set the long and short-term goals for those members or for the seniors so that they can increase their activity. They are using a system called Community Health Activities Program for seniors, and it is basically a physical activity self-reporting questionnaire. And so they have yet to start recruiting. They had a little hiccup and lost their program director right before the start of service. So we are working with them to get that program off the ground. But it has operated on a very small scale with very small staff and has had great success. And so now they want to expand across the state. So we're starting with 5. By next year, we hope to bring on all of their ad districts. And I believe in Kentucky, there are 13 ad districts. And so we're hoping to expand that program as well. And that's sort of what we do in Kentucky around engaging seniors. And what I will say about our programs is there are some within all of these, some of the people that are serving as members are seniors helping seniors. Some are recruiting, millennials and the iGens or even baby boomers to do their service. So no one has, none of our programs specifically say you have to be a senior to be in the program, but they want to make sure that the seniors are served, and they do that through various intergenerational member types.
Great. Thanks so much, Carie, for sharing those 3 examples. That's fantastic. So now we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Carson in South Carolina. And I know Carson has some slides that she wants to share. Go ahead, Carson.
And Carson, you are unmuted on our end, but you might need to unmute your own line. Carson does apologize. She's in a busy airport, I understand. Are you there, Carson? Carson, is it possible we can't hear you? I think you might be double muted on your phone and or the app. Let me try muting and unmuting you again. Okay, can you try again? Okay, we're still not hearing you. If you are using the app, just make sure that you unmute yourself on the GoToMeeting app or whatever device you're on. Sorry about that. Carson might have to call in separately, or I'm not sure if there's any other recourse here. Carson, are you there?
Okay, so Emily, while we're trying to work with Carson on getting her audio live, just want to again encourage folks to, if you have examples of activities that are happening in your state, please feel free to put those in the chat box and or raise your hand so that Emily can unmute your line. And Carson, if you can hear us when you are available.
She is available. She's chatting with me. She says she's talking, but we just can't hear her, but she shows up as unmuted on our end. So it must be either an issue with the phone or our controls. Just one moment.
Okay.
She said she can also share some tidbits via chat if we want to share them, if she wants to narrate and we perhaps share on her behalf.
Okay. Phyllis, how would you like to proceed? Would you like for us to do that, or would you like to go ahead and continue with your slides?
Well, I am so eager to hear what Carson is going to say, having now looking at her cover slide.
Yes.
I loved Carie hearing what's going on in Kentucky, and it's a good illustration of how older adults are both a solution by bringing assets to the service they do, and a population with needs for being served. It's a great example of the kind of richness and fullness of what's going on. I loved your last comment about how the 3 projects are engaging people of all ages in doing that service, which is what will bind our generations together. What I can do is move into talking about the 2 ideas that I wanted to describe, and when Carson is available, bring her back in. Why don't we do that?
That's great, Phyllis.
Okay, so this is going to stretch you all a bit, and I hope you're in the mood to be stretched. The first idea around intergenerational service is how that can, in fact, solve a problem that the service movement faces in finding affordable housing for people who are coming into communities for a year of service as AmeriCorps members. The solution is through an approach that is called home sharing. And rather than describe it to you, I'm going to ask you to listen to a 3-minute news broadcast. You will first see an advertisement for buying cars. Just kind of, maybe that will interest you, but stay with it. The video will move quickly into the newscast about the intergenerational service solution.
One second while I get the video.
High cost of living.
All right, let me know if y'all can.
Community service organizations say the high cost of living in the Bay Area is scaring away potential volunteers. But as KTVU's Ann Rubin explains, a pilot program hopes to help by matching recent grads doing a year of service work with empty nesters who have space to spare.
Brittany Hernandez signed up for a year of service, helping in San Jose schools. But what she didn't sign on for, sleeping on a couch last year because housing was simply too expensive.
A lot of sacrifices have to be made, but I love what I do, and so it makes it worth it. But it also makes it very challenging to do my day-to-day life.
She's not alone. Most of her colleagues with Service Organization's City Year have lots of roommates, and at least one decided to live in his van. Others chose to avoid volunteering in San Jose altogether.
When we have a decreasing population of people interested in serving because of the cost of living, it creates a hardship for the community.
A new program hopes to address that. It's a partnership between Service Year Alliance that helps young people looking to do community service and Silver Nest, which helps senior citizens rent out their extra rooms. They say matching the 2 groups could benefit both sides.
Maybe there's some people in San Jose who are older Americans who might be really interested in helping us make that vision of service at scale a reality.
You can offer to reduce the rent for some work around the house. So say, for example, somebody will mow your lawn or walk your dog.
Service groups say it's an interesting idea, but that more needs to be done. They're already seeing fewer volunteers each year.
It's important work, it's necessary work, and we love what we do. It's just very hard to live sustainably here.
Since the program just launched, there isn't any information about matches yet, but Silver Nest says there are already senior citizens with rooms available. In San Jose, Ann Rubin, KTVU Fox 2 News.
Let me say that it was either Cara or Emily who did the magic of eliminating the starting advertisement for selling cars so that you were able to get right into this newscast. This summer, there were pilots operating in Denver for Teach for America members, San Jose through the Service Year Alliance for all service members who could apply, and in Miami with City Year. The idea is to tap into homes where there are homeowners who have rooms to share. I think of empty nesters, older adults whose children have moved out and who want to stay in their homes as a perfect opportunity for that. This was begun as a pilot in 3 places with the hope that all of the glitches could be worked out, and for the next service year, this could be made available throughout the country. Silver Nest is a national home sharing site platform. There are other home sharing platforms as well. It's a way to bring generations together as roommates and as a way to help young people who are coming into a community to do a year of service feel part of that community. I know that for Teach for America, there's been the goal of getting the teachers to stay in communities after their fellowship years end, the 2 years end. So it's a multifaceted approach to problems that national service programs have felt. I'm curious to know if there are any others on the phone who have experienced this or can tell us a little bit about the affordable housing challenges in your states.
So if you have anything that you'd like to share on that front about affordable housing and how it's affecting members and how this could be a potential solution, if you want to raise your hand so Emily can unmute your line and or type something in the chat box, that would be great. So it looks like Carie has raised her hand.
Okay, just a second. Oh, Carie, I think you're unmuted on our end still, so you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, there we go. So I went to a Service Year Alliance event right after Symposium in September, and I got to meet with Jennifer at or at Silver Nest. And we talked a little bit about Kentucky. Currently that we could find there was 1 house sharing going on in Kentucky. And so they hadn't really ventured into Kentucky just yet. So one of my goals is to help connect her. And I thought a great connection would be to speak with some of our Senior Corps programs. We have a great relationship with Senior Corps. They actually have one of their directors is on our commission. And so I'm trying to connect with her to see if I can get her connected with Silver Nest so that we can find more of those opportunities in Kentucky for house sharing. I think for Kentucky, our biggest concerns are the areas of Louisville and Lexington, which are our most urban areas. And what we find there is that the people want to do the service, but the difficulty is, again, finding the housing and doing so on the limited amount of living allowance that you get. And so I'm looking to see if we can't get something moving in those areas. For example, we do have a program that is similar to Teach for America. It's just called Teach Kentucky, and they operate solely in Louisville, but they bring in students from other states to teach in JCPS school district, and housing is a big issue for them. And so I'm looking to see how we can provide some assistance in that area, because in the past, that's been one of the major recruitment issues that we've had in Lexington and Louisville.
Well, that's great to hear, Carie. The Senior Corps and RSVP program connection could be a helpful route to find homeowners who are willing to share their homes, and it's bringing together both older adults and young service members. It's easier to reach the service members because we do that you would do that through your service programs. I encourage all of the state commissions to look into this as a solution, a solution to try. I want to move to the second idea, assuming that we're still not going to be able to hear from Carson, to talk about the creation of what we're calling an early childhood legacy corps. So this is going to stretch you to think about older adults not only as a resource to help solve the problems of the frail elderly, of seniors who need support, but as a resource to help the youngest children in our nation, where we know there's a critical need because of the importance of the early years to setting children on the path to success. That's the first 3 years are absolutely essential for brain development. It's the foundation for long-term physical and mental health. And yet we know that children who enter school without a strong start fall behind and sadly stay behind. That's why early childhood is an area in which there is now very high investment of public resources, private philanthropy resources, and at the same time, there are significant workforce challenges. It's one thing to provide universal preschool, and it's another to find the teachers and the paraprofessionals to support the classrooms. Yes? Yes? Are you not hearing me?
I can hear you, Phyllis. This is Emma.
Oh, okay. I just heard someone say Phyllis, so I thought there was a problem. There's a strong foundation for bringing older adults into early childhood settings. It's called the Foster Grandparents Program. We have 6 decades of successful engagement by older adults in early childhood settings. There are now some 7,000 around the country who are working in early childhood settings. And the experience has shown the benefits that brings to the young children who are in those who are in the schools, who are in the child care centers, to the older adults, the foster grandparents who are serving, and also to the caregivers and teachers and parents who are supported by foster grandparents. The idea of a legacy corps, if you'd move to the next slide, please, is to expand what's going on in foster grandparents, but not limit it to foster grandparents. There are a lot of programs that have adapted the foster grandparent idea in different ways, bringing older adults into early childhood classrooms, into child care centers. There are pilots that have been going on around the country to show the value, which have shown the value add of this engagement, again, for all 3 generations: the youngest children, the volunteers who are serving, and the caregivers who are supported by that service. An early childhood legacy corps would attempt to expand these programs through public sector and private sector engagement with programs expecting people who are serving to make a significant time commitment, providing for them some type of financial support. Of course, we know that for all service engagement, you need training and good volunteer management. It's important to deliver evidence-based services that we know will have a serious impact, a meaningful impact on the community that's being served. And this is also potentially a pathway to employment by those doing the service into jobs as preschool teachers and administrators. The Rainbow Intergenerational Center in Miami has done this with great success. bringing older adults into the child care center to learn the way and then become members of the staff ultimately. The Legacy Corps would be modeled on the Service Year Alliance, as which you just heard about in the presentation on home sharing, with a hub that would both support the service programs and be a way for volunteers to find service opportunities. We think that there is an opportunity to turn the foundation of experience into a meaningful set of initiatives throughout the country to bring support to our youngest children. And we believe there's an opportunity for states to be the leaders in this field. There are a number of federal discretionary funds that states can tap to create pilots and innovate in this area. There's huge amounts of additional spending that's going on right now in states on early childhood, and some of that can be applied to pilot Legacy Corps activities, engaging older adults in the workforce. And there is the potential for legislative action at the federal and the state level to create incentives for service in early childhood settings. So there are a huge number of opportunities in states. We believe that there are a number of governors who will be interested in doing this. And a question that I would love to hear from you about is whether you would see this as a useful endeavor in your states by your state commissions, and perhaps the state service commissions becoming the operator of the Legacy Corps hub. I think that I'd love to see some hands raised or chats reacting to this. What do you think about this idea for your state? Could your commission be an early childhood Legacy Corps hub?
If you'd like to be unmuted, please raise your hand.
Does this interest you?
Yes, send us a note in the chat box or unmute, raise your hand, and we'll unmute your line.
Looks like Mark in Indiana, Emily.
Okay, coming to you, Mark. 1 second. Okay, try your line now, Mark. You might have to unmute your own device, though. Let me try your other one. Okay, try again. You should be unmuted on our end. I think, can you speak now, Mark?
All right, well, while we're waiting on that, I'm going to there's a couple comments coming into the chat box. So Heather from West Virginia said, I would like more information about this. I think it fits our priority areas very well. Maybe I could follow up with you. So definitely, Phyllis, some interest from West Virginia. Also, Antonio from Colorado. I echo Heather's sentiment. More information would be helpful so we could have an internal discussion here in Colorado. And for some further comments from Heather in West Virginia, for context, our state is now running the Early Childhood Advisory Council and a committee on improving access to early childhood learning. And Mark said he is just going to type. So we'll have some more coming in from Indiana momentarily, Phyllis.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear that this aligns with priorities in some of your states, and I will be happy to have a conversation that goes into this more deeply. We Encore.org is preparing a white paper to explain this idea and a strategy to introduce it in states, in particular to state governors, and looking for partners in states to join with us in in this endeavor. So I'd love to do both one-on-one conversations with each of you who are raising your hands, and sharing the white paper when it's released with all of you, because it might put more flesh on the bones to engage you in the idea more deeply and to spark your own imagination.
That would be great, Phyllis, and I know we'd be happy to share that with the State Commission Network when that white paper is ready, beyond any kind of individual conversations that you have. That being said, I do see that we have Mark from Indiana in the chat box. So he said Indiana would be well positioned to be a hub for the ECLC in Indiana. We have already done connecting work between leaders and the aging adult community, as well as the out-of-school time network. This would be exciting for us. We also, in the chat box, have a comment from Jeannie in Wisconsin. So Jeannie says, we attempted to have an encore program with seniors working in schools, but could not get sufficient commitment from the potential members. What time frame are your encore members committed for?
It's not a one-size-fits-all. So if you're looking at, for example, a program that brings older adults into emergency settings to stand up childcare centers when there's been a disaster, it would be a concentrated period of time for a number of weeks. If the program is looking for stable volunteers in a classroom, in a preschool, it would be for a set number of hours a week over the course of at least a year. This is not a single idea. It's or a single program. It's the goal is to invent new programs and new ways of doing this. We understand that providing some type of stipend, financial cost reimbursement, property tax credit is a way to accomplish a more serious and longer tenured commitment, but the particular number of hours will depend. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. It should be, however, a serious, significant commitment of time to the program.
Great, thanks, Phyllis. And also we see that North Carolina is interested as well. So following the call today, Phyllis, I'll make sure to follow up with you and provide contact information for those states that have indicated interest, so that we can have an opportunity to follow up. Also say that there is some interest in New Jersey as well in a separate chat conversation. So we'll make sure to add New Jersey to that list. Okay,
and I wonder, Cara, perhaps we could do a group conference call. Devoting more time to this with everyone that's raised their hands, going a little more deeply into it. I'd love to do that.
That's great, Phyllis, and we would be happy to coordinate that. So we can follow up on that.
Yeah, and let me offer as well, if there are states who want to learn more about the home sharing idea, we could also do a special conversation about that through a smaller conference call.
That's great. I love that. So I do think, Phyllis, that we think that we may have Carson ready to go. So great. if you are amenable, we'd love to throw it to Carson right now.
I'd love that.
Great. Carson, Are you there?
Fingers crossed. Can you hear me?
Yay, we can.
Ooh, okay. Hopefully there's not too much background noise, but I'm going to make this brief. So these two stunning women are actually a mother and a daughter. And like always, I'm sure you'll get these slides afterwards. So the next slide is just their story. Basically, the mom recruited the daughter. They're both social workers. The mom's retired. She's only 53, and you can certainly tell by her youthful skin and smile, but the daughter is actually the supervisor of the program in like a team lead capacity. So they've had a really fun time. We've had a great time interviewing them. But if you can move to the next slide, I pulled our stats from the 2018-2019 program year. And you guys can all pull these same stats. I will warn you, you have to be maybe like intermediate Excel level. But I wanted to show you, like, our state formula grant is by far our most age diverse grant. And I also wanted to show, like, this is only 372 members. So I know some, like, individual programs in other states have that many members. So, like, you have to think about sampling. But overall, we've seen that seniors are more likely to complete their term of service, 81% compared to 65, which is obviously horrible. Don't judge us. But we're really proud of that. So if you go to the next slide, I'll show you, this is the types of slots that members 55 and older have enrolled in, and that was just last year. So obviously this is heavily influenced by program design, depending on, so like we have a lot of 300-hour members because we have a reading program based out of United Way of the Low Country that specifically recruits older adults, and those are 300-hour slots. So their program is about half and half. Out of our 372 members that I pulled this data on, 50 of them were 55 and older. So it's not as much as we would like, but we're certainly getting there. If you can click to the next. So one thing that we've heard over and over again is that just, you know, people appreciate being valued. And so the ability to really articulate the strengths that seniors bring to a team, and this is just like, honestly off the top of my head, but and from my own experience as an AmeriCorps member with a mentor in my program, you know, we've had really, really great success with our intergenerational teams. And some of our programs actually has, like, they don't have to recruit. Like, they'll recruit one year and then the next year they might have to recruit one member. So imagine what you could be doing with all of your time if you're not recruiting members. So go on to the next one. And I know I'm rushing through these. You'll have them. And the notes of these is how I pulled all the data and how you'd run it. It's, again, kind of technical, so I'd be happy to talk to you more. All of us have aging populations that are significantly increasing, and so not only, you know, like, it is a true win-win. The seniors win, we fill our slots, everything's great. Next slide. So this is the last one that I think I'll speak on, is just making sure that your materials have seniors in them, and not only seniors, but I have heard so many times, like, oh, isn't AmeriCorps for young people? And being able to say, actually, no, our average age member last year was 39 for our formula programs. People are like, oh, that could be me then. And I think from my experience, I've seen seniors, like, just totally count themselves out if they don't see someone looking like them in the marketing materials. I've also heard that members are recruited by newspaper and cable. So while that might feel, you know, outdated, or like you might get the get members, you do, and you get ones that stay. And then also just anytime you have an opportunity to have speaking opportunities. The next two slides, again, you'll have, but they're just about, like, how to attract older members and where to attract older members. So, like, I love this first question. If you could provide the gift of an education award while using your experience to help a child learn to read, like, who would say no to that? You know, like, if you have time, like, why would you not? Like, that's an easy yes. I do think that if you are recruiting seniors, if you're able to speak to the ways that a living allowance does or does not impact Social Security that they might be getting, this is one, like, really tangible point that can be problematic or really beneficial for seniors. So just being knowledgeable enough about that to speak to their concerns. And then, of course, like, making sure that you're not eliminating disqualifying requirements like college degrees or the ability to lift 50 pounds. And then the last slide, I love this photo of this woman. You can just imagine her, you know, like, she says it all with that expression. She's like, oh, come do AmeriCorps. And I think that, we all know someone just like that in our programs. It's like the AmeriCorps storyteller and recruiter. And so make sure that you empower people like that to speak at their local, the places where they already have ties, like their churches and their community groups, college groups, sororities, whatever, so that you can really recruit great people. So I want to shout out to Rita Pratt, who has gotten all of these photos for us. She's done a great job, but I also really wanted to thank Phyllis for not only speaking on the call today, but your leadership in this entire community that we have. It's made such a difference in my life and the life of many in my state. So
I want to thank you for that kindness, and also for your presentation. Absolutely brilliant. It's a great illustration of how bringing generations together through service is important. I want to highlight what you're doing in South Carolina in this policy paper we are working on. So I want to follow up with you about that. I also want to mention that on the question of recruitment, Encore.org has resources around recruitment. It's called a 10-step guide that will help you to understand where and how to most effectively recruit older adults. And lastly, the point you made about retention, that is universal. Boys and Girls Clubs has reported a significantly higher retention rate for older adults, and it's not a surprise because their lives are more stable once you reach a stage of life after midlife. This doesn't mean that olders are better than youngers, but a workforce that combines a service corps that combines them both, reducing the recruitment needs for churn is valuable to the service programs. Eunice has just put in the link to the 10 steps guide, where you'll find some specific leads on how to recruit.
Great, thanks, Phyllis. Phyllis, any closing comments that you'd like to make before we end today's webinar?
I want to encourage all of the state commissions to seriously look at how you can activate and mobilize older adults in your state through intergenerational service, both in activating older adults to serve other olders or young people, and how you can encourage service together. I feel as though we have just touched the tip of the iceberg. I look forward to another call that digs in more deeply on the Early Childhood Legacy Corps, and that you'll look seriously at home sharing, both of those as just two illustrations of how intergenerational service can make a difference in your communities.
Wonderful. So, Phyllis, thank you again for joining us. I think that this has been a really thoughtful conversation. I think I know, knowing our folks, that they are really, their heads are spinning right now thinking about all the possibilities. So we'll make sure to follow up with everyone with the recording from today's webinar, as well as all the resource materials, the PowerPoint presentations that we have shared today, and also an invitation for folks, if you are interested in any of the follow-up calls that we suggested, either about the home sharing piece or the Legacy Corps piece. We'll make sure to provide information about that as well, so that we can get those calls on the calendar. So again, thank you to our presenters, Phyllis, Carie, and Carson, but a big thanks to Phyllis and Eunice from Encore.org. We really, really appreciate your interest in talking with state commissions and your partnership as well.
All right, take care, everyone, and we will post the recording very soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.